this sit down, I actually got the opportunity to talk to Landon from Invincible Toys. This is the second time I've gotten to sit down and talk to him. The first time was during the Kickstarter. Unfortunately, I ended up scrapping that sit down because I wasn't satisfied with the way that my mic quality was, and I take pride in the content that I put up on the channel, and if I'm not satisfied with the way that things turn out on my end, I either scrap it and I re-record it, or I just scrap it and move on to the next thing. So luckily, patience is key. I waited until after the Kickstarter because I know Invincible Toys is very busy in terms of doing different conventions and working on the final test samples and all that stuff. So I actually got the opportunity to talk to him for a little bit before I had to go to work. This is how it turned out. So once again, thank you very much, Landon. It was an opportunity to sit down with you and talk to you about toys, and talk to you about the line, and I can't wait to sit back down with you again when we finally get the figures in hand. That way we can talk about them. Before we get into this, check out the Invincible Toys Instagram. Check out the Fist Instagram too. I will have all this in the description. And there was a couple of different Kickstarters that we were talking about, and one of them is the Combat Creatures. They are very, very close to getting this thing funded. I'm gonna go ahead and back it right now, and at least back one figure, and hopefully this thing gets backed, because there's some really cool stuff that is going on with this company. And I will go ahead and link the backer kit link in the description of this as well. That way you guys who missed out on the Kickstarter can go ahead and still get your orders in for the Futuristic Combat Soldiers before they end up shipping out. Yeah, with all that being said, here's my sit down with Landon from Invincible Toys.
I am sitting here with Landon from Invincible Toys. It has been a while, sir. I haven't talked to you since the Kickstarter, and a lot has happened. I do want to say congratulations. I'm glad that the Kickstarter got funded. I wish that you guys were able to hit all the unlocked tiers, but hopefully some of that stuff we'll hopefully see in the future.
Yeah, absolutely. That's definitely something we're pushing for. We definitely want to keep moving forward with that line and continue to offer a bunch of different characters. I mean, we have, probably another 2 sets easily that we could push out if everything continues to move along. And Hercules is one of those we definitely want to get in there.
Because I know whenever you were sitting down and wrapping up the Kickstarter, you guys already announced that you had Wave 2 planned out, you had the molds ready to go, but you were just waiting to see how the Kickstarter was going to turn out.
Yeah, absolutely. We had the prototypes. We prototyped everything out, and if depending on how much the Kickstarter pulled in, depended on how far we were going to be able to do that. It did pretty well for what it was, coming into something that's just an intellectual property that not a lot of people really know about, and to have it funded right off the back. That's a pretty big stepping stone for a company. So I was happy with it, what we did, and moving forward and continuing the business. We've done a lot of things since then. We're still working on the action figures. We're coming to the end of that journey real soon here. So hopefully everybody should be getting those in hand. We're just waiting on the factory to finish up on uh, getting everything injection molded, and then they'll paint them up, box them, and then they'll be shipping them into the U.S.
That's awesome. Yeah, I can't wait. I've been following it since you guys first showed stuff at Joe Fest. Um, and then I can't remember what the next convention was. I don't know if it was PowerCon or if there was one before PowerCon. But then you showed us the painted samples. Um, and then at PowerCon, you showed us everyone with all their accessories and
Hmm.
what they're gonna look like, or close to what they're gonna look like in hand, and they just they looked wonderful. I can't wait to get them in hand.
Yeah, the factory's doing a great job on them. It's taken a lot longer than we would have liked, but you heard that whole thing where everywhere was like, oh man, we're having issues because of COVID and the factories doing this. Sorry if you see my son running around. But
That's okay.
they were talking about how they were having issues, and a lot of people didn't believe that. But I mean, I will tell you firsthand that that's a lot of stuff that we were dealing with as well. There were points where they would shut the whole factory down, nobody would be able to go to work, or they would only have two people going to work, and it was rough. So we saw, we didn't see a lot of progress at those points. But once kind of everything got lifted, everything's been really kind of moving forward at the pace that it would normally move at, that you're used to seeing from a factory. And, that's been a huge benefit. So hopefully that hasn't, hindered us in our growth as a company too much. But yeah, we're definitely continuously working on that, trying to, move the process along as fast as possible while still maintaining great quality figures. And that's one thing. I mean, we don't really get too many people that are that concerned about it, but every once in a while you get that person who's like, hey, where's my figure, why are you guys taking so long, and so on and so forth. And it's like, you try to kind of quail them as much as you can. You kind of give them, the best answers you can as things move along. But it's something that I totally believe in, making sure that we get good quality figures out there, and I'm not going to rush it and end up putting out something that's subpar in the process, because things did take a little longer. But yeah, so things are moving along, things are going good. We've picked up a couple other lines as we've been moving forward. So we've got like Fist, and that's going to be coming out soon. We're still working on that. We actually have all of those molds, they're ready to go. We just need to do the Kickstarter campaign, which we're kind of planning the timeout on that to make sure that we do it right. Obviously, we don't want to do it now with Thanksgiving going on and then rolling into Christmas, when you're asking somebody to back a Kickstarter campaign, and then they're going to put money towards that. And then luckily with this one, it won't take as long. It won't take that kind of full year process to go through and do it. Since the molds are already done, it'll probably only take about 6 months, and then those figures will be in people's hands. But we definitely want to make sure that we launch that at the right time, so we could get good funding behind it.
Right. Um, yeah, I know that there were a lot of companies that were just starting up and were doing Kickstarters, and then the whole issue with all the shipping containers being stuck in the ports really delayed
Yeah.
a lot of that stuff. And so you had a lot of other companies that were starting with Kickstarter, trying to get their figure line funded, that were dealing with the same issue. Um,
Yeah, it was rough. Even before our Kickstarter, kind of like when we did our Kickstarter. There were a couple other companies that did their Kickstarters kind of around that same time, and we were really lucky because those Kickstarters were funding. But before that, they had some previous Kickstarters that did fund and they didn't follow through, and that kind of put a bad taste in people's mouths. So we got pretty lucky that we were able to fund, and then we kind of rolled into the COVID time, and that really kind of slowed up the process and slowed down people doing those kickstarters and how people were kind of looking at it. But yeah, hopefully that's a thing in the past and we don't have to worry about any of those issues anymore moving forward.
I hope that no more issues like that happen, because I know COVID really, COVID, when COVID came through, none of us were expecting it, and so you had stores shutting down, you had um, jobs being halted, and everything. The world just like stopped in
Yeah, and I
place
mean,
for a little bit.
luckily we've been able to come out of that. But of course we still see the after effects of it. I mean, that's pretty much where this inflation is coming from, and then that's kind of hurting people too because I know myself, like I've really backed off on the my collecting. I'm really more specific in what I'm buying and stuff like that, where before I used to just kind of pick up things, as I saw it and I liked it, and it wasn't that big of a deal to scoop it up and add it to the collection. But now uh, those funds you got to go towards finances. So it's like now I'm a lot more selective. I'm sure other people are too.
No, I'm the same way too. I've significantly slowed down. It's mostly either stuff that I'm finding at like either Ross or at like
Mm.
outlet stores. If I find something there, I'll grab it, but there's not really a lot of lines that are out right now that I'm doing the full price for.
Yeah, and I get that. Especially when we're seeing these kind of drastic decreases in those prices, where you can pick them up for fairly, decent amounts. And when you're talking about some of these lines are having these increases, like Star Wars Black, the Star Wars Black series, they're increasing those prices, and you're like, man, we're at that point where we're really having to be selective, and then those prices keep going up. Yeah, it's really hard to kind of justify that when you have other things you have to worry about. But when you start seeing them, and I mean, like the GI Joe classified figures, they're great figures. They're probably one of the few lines that I continuously collect. Even then, I'm still picking and choosing. But you're seeing those guys, and like you said, they're hitting like Ross and some of the other stores. But yeah, I mean, when you can get them for 8, 10, 11 bucks, I mean, you can't pass that up. That's a pretty good deal.
Right. Um, I know that when you were looking at um, planning out Invincible toys, you had a price range that you guys were trying to stay in because of the effects of COVID, and I appreciate that because I know that there are a lot of companies that are trying to sway away from, what the bigger known companies are doing, where they're not giving you as much, and but they're increasing the price, and you guys are
Hmm.
trying to give us as much as you possibly can for that price range, and I appreciate that a lot, especially during like these times where inflation has really caused a lot of us collectors to be very picky and choosy with some of our lines, where we'll have to choose, do I want to keep collecting this line, or do I just want to drop this line as a whole? um,
Yeah.
And so, I really appreciate you guys looking into that and trying to give us the most for our money.
And that was kind of the plan, even before kind of the COVID situation, and we had to deal with that, and then the inflation was to put out the best figure we could with the most amount of value to it at the lowest price point possible, where somebody could look at it. And I'm a huge believer in everything has a perceived value, right? So if you look at something and you're like, oh, hey, here's a bottle of paint. How much am I going to pay for that bottle of paint? Well, what's in that bottle of paint? Is it regular paint and I'm paying $100 for it? Well, there's no perceived value there. Now, is that a bottle of paint and it's filled with liquid gold? Okay, well, maybe there's more value in the justification of having it, at $100. But a lot of the places we're not getting that perceived value and the prices are going up. So the goal was to have a figure that had that great value to it. So when you saw it while you were scrolling by online, or if we make it into stores, when you see it on a shelf and you say, hey, wow, that's a lot of figure for that asking price. And then you have that perceived value, especially when you're talking about a line that doesn't have a lot of history behind it. So you have something like the X-Men, right? Everybody knows who Wolverine is. Everybody knows, Cyclops and Jean Grey and Gambit. So when you see those, you're you're buying the figure because you like the figure, but you're also buying it because of that history that comes with it, right? Hey, I remember watching the X-Men when I was younger. Oh, I read the comics, so on and so forth. And you can, of course, still get those things in a comic shop. You go to the comic shop, you can still pick up an X-Men comic with those characters in it. But if you see something and you see a futuristic combat soldier and you've never seen them before, and it doesn't have all of that history built up behind it that we're still working on creating, then what are the chances that you're going to go and you're going to want to purchase that, especially in today's times? Well, it's going to have to be that value to it, where you see, hey, wow, this comes with all of these hands, it comes with all of these weapons, it comes with all these interchangeable parts, and that's a really cool design. Is that something that you're likely to pick up and kind of almost like an impulse buy, or start collecting that and starting a new line instead of picking up something in the old line? And we are seeing a lot of that too nowadays, that people are like, hey, I've got 100 Wolverines, why do I need another Wolverine? And it's the same thing. And we see Hasbro pumping out Wolverine figures on the same buck body, and then it's like, oh well, this one has different claws, this one has a different head, this one is a different color. And then you kind of get that fatigue, or you get like Batman and McFarlane, and literally every other figure you're getting is a Batman character, and it sells, and that's what works for McFarlane. But people are getting to that point where they're like, man, I'm kind of starting to feel that fatigue. And if I'm going to invest my money, I want to make sure I'm investing it in something that I'm going to enjoy, that might, be unique and cool and different, instead of the thing I keep seeing all the time. Especially if you already have 25 Batman on your shelf, you might get to that point where you're like, hey, I'd like to maybe start something a little different. So
No, I 100% agree. That's why there's a lot of lines that I dropped out of, but there's a lot of lines that I dropped into because it mixed it up a bit. It was like the certain figures had individuality and stuff like that. Like one of the lines that I recently got into, and I did a whole overview kind of talking about it, was the, the the Hasbro Fortnite figures, and they only did a couple of waves, and then they just dropped the series like Hasbro usually does. They'll start with a line and they'll kill it before it even gets a chance to walk. But I've had a lot of fun messing around with those. And I had no idea that we even had any of the Ollie stores around us. And the first time I went in there, they had um, a lot of the figures that I never saw in the store, or Hasbro was charging a price that I was like, there is no way that I'm going to pay this price for
mm-hmm.
this figure, because it's ridiculous. And so I waited, and then they went on clearance, and I either waited too long or they got immediately snatched up off of clearance, and so I completely missed out. And I went in there and I got, I think, the 2 pack of the twins. They're like astronauts, and they have space
Mm-hmm.
helmets, and um, they come with, each one of them comes with a gun. I got Man Cake. He's like this pancake cowboy.
Yeah.
Um, and I got, they're called the Chaos Double Agents. They kind of look like henchmen from like a
Right.
James Bond movie.
Mm-hmm.
And there was like, I had to have picked up maybe like 6 or 7 of them, and I think I got it all for around $40, maybe even
Wow.
less than that. And if I had paid regular price, it probably would have been like 100 and something to like close to 200 for all that. I even got the Fortnite boat, which is this giant. I mean, it's probably like about this big, and it has a display stand that's like water, and you plug it into it, and it looks like it's floating on water. You can push the boosters in, and they pop out, and you could fit probably about 8 figures on it
Wow.
altogether. And I got it for $15. That thing was like 70 or $80 when Hasbro
Mm-hmm.
first came out. So, it's crazy to find all this stuff. And um what I've seen is a lot of collectors just kind of were passing up this stuff because the Joes were showing up at Ollie's for $4.99. And so everyone was worried about that. But I mean, it was great for me because I was able to fill in those last couple of holes that I was missing for my collection. But that's what I mean. You kind of, well, what COVID has taught me, and like because of the rise of inflation, like we talked about, is that you have to be more smarter with the way that you collect. Um, so, stores might be empty right now. They might not have the stuff that you want, or you
Right.
drop the line, but you could go to stores like Ross and Ollie's and Marshalls and TJ Maxx, and you could find all these great figures for like $5 to $10, and the quality of the plastic is great, and there's no sloppy paint, there's none of that, and they're just awesome. And they even had these little, see if I have these. They had these little arcade machines, and they were like $2, and they had a couple of guns in them, and you can pop the back out and as like a rack. So
Oh, nice.
they,
Yeah, I didn't even know those had those racks in them.
so I got a couple of them because I'm gonna get a acetone, and I'm gonna take all the decals off and just spray paint them outside and paint them myself. But I mean, so I have stuff for pictures or for a background or something like that. But I mean, yeah, it's just taught me to be smarter when it comes to collecting, because with Hasbro raising prices and these bigger companies raising prices, it's like, well, for $50, do I really want to pay $50 for this when I can go to a store like Ollie's and I can get,
Yeah.
6 or 7 figures for that price? So
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, you know, the cool thing is that they have those things like the boats and stuff like that. And if you're into, customizing, like you said, hey, I'll just, strip the decals off and do something else with it. Um, those are a lot of great options. Even if you're not, I mean, like that boat, it still wasn't to the point where, you couldn't use it for something like your GI Joe classified collection. So, yeah, I mean, you even had like the Buzz Lightyear jet and stuff like that, where people were doing some awesome customs on that, and it got down to a fairly cheap price too. So yeah, there's definitely a lot of great deals out there, and I think we kind of hit this oversaturation this year
yeah, there you go.
because
There you
yeah,
go. There's
there it is. Yeah, and it still looks nice even if you don't
Yep.
do anything to it.
And I've seen a lot of people say that you could disassemble it and paint it, and you could use that for a Cobra Stinger if you wanted to. But I mean, the seat moves, the steering wheel moves. There's pegs on the inside. It comes with the, like I said, the display stand, so you can take that off. And um, I almost fell. And then the push the boosters, and the boosters can go up. And yeah, I've had a lot of fun with these. I had the steel core on here. I had
Nice.
a couple of my Joes. I had some of the Valiverse figures. I mean, they all fit on there. So, you know.
Yeah, and I think we have some really great, aquatic figures that are out that are, will go great on the boat. So you can drop them on there and, have them on the boat or have them, kind of dropping off the boat or whatever the case is. And I mean, it's great, if that's how you like to display things. I know, I mean, I'm a big fan of like dios and actually putting something up there and having the characters on it because it just brings a lot more to the your display stands. So yeah, that's a big thing.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I love that I found that. I think there was like one or two more, and I was in the store and I almost missed it, but I saw the box at the very bottom and I was like, "What is that?" And I looked at it and I was like, "Oh, they have this." I couldn't believe they had it. So I came home with me. There was no hesitation. It came home with me.
And you said you
Um
picked it up for $15.
for $15.
Yeah, man, even if you can't really find something for it now, that's just a lot of product to pass up for $15, especially when you're talking about figures are more than $15. So yeah,
Let me
that's huge. That's a huge score there.
see if I have the space. The twins I can go real quick. Well, at least while I'm trying to fiddle around here and do this. I know the last time I sat down and I talked to you, you were kind of talking about how you got into collecting and kind of the origin story for how you got into collecting and then how that built into Invincible toys.
Hmm.
And unfortunately, I wasn't satisfied with the way that my audio sounded, so I had to completely
Okay.
scrap that. But if you want to go ahead and tell everyone your origin story on on how it started from you collecting and how you built all the way up to Invincible toys.
Okay. Yeah. And this is stuff I've talked about before, but obviously we had that conversation. Uh, but my father was in the military. He retired out of the army, but when we were little, we were he was sent over to Europe, over in Germany. So we lived, off of military housing, so it was considered the economy. So we lived with German families and stuff like that. And at that point, there's not, um, a lot of obviously English speaking kids around there. So one of the things we were able to do and communicate was by playing with action figures and stuff like that. So at that point, like He-Man and GI Joe was kind of big, and so we would go out and play with He-Man and GI Joe, and that kind of always stuck with me. As I kind of progressed, as I got older, and then maybe middle school, I did what most people do and kind of fall out of collecting. And it wasn't until maybe later on in high school that I ended up starting to customize action figures. So I would, get a bunch of action figures, tear them apart, put them back together, do sculpting and painting on them. And that's kind of how I learned about how action figures work, where I learned how to paint and stuff like that. And then probably about 3 years ago is when I decided to start making action figures. I knew that was something that I always wanted to do. And one day I just kind of sat down, came up with the concept of futuristic combat soldiers, and just kind of sat down, came up with the designs, and then kind of plugged away at it until I figured out the process. And then once I learned that process, that's something that I've been continuing to do and been trying to help other people in the community learn about too.
No, that's awesome. I'm glad that you're trying to help other people set up their Kickstarter or try to set up their line,
Mhm.
and give them and kind of mentor them and tell them, hey, this is the best way to do it. You should do it like this instead of like this. And that's awesome because there's a lot of people out there um, that won't want to help, and it's
Yeah,
awesome to see people in the community helping others out in terms of trying to set that stuff up, because it's a lot of responsibility.
it is.
It's a lot of planning, and um, you know a lot of work to start a line and to start a
Mhm.
company and try to build it, and work out the kinks in terms of, when you're putting together a figure, this type of engineering works, this doesn't, we need
Yeah.
to change this um, in order for the figures to be able to do this. And yeah, it's a lot. It is
Yeah, and
a lot of work.
it, it's constantly growing too. I mean, that's one of the things we do. We sit down and we look at like articulation and how it works. We look at other, things that we want to do, and is that going to work out logistically? When can we approach it? Hey, we got to finish out the futuristic combat soldiers and get that in people's hands before we move on to fist. And that's something I'm a firm believer about. I want to make sure that, hey, you guys backed us and you guys paid for something, and we want to make sure that you guys get that before we start spending all of this attention on other lines. So doing stuff like that, always working through, you know, how figures work, even business models and stuff like that. Once again, like one of the reasons why we didn't just, Fist is pretty much ready to go. But the reason why we didn't jump into that was because it just doesn't make sense to do that here at the end of the year. And part of that is, of course, the holidays. But you also have to think about things like how does that fall when you have to deal with things like taxes, you know? Um, and that's there's a lot more to it. There's a lot more to just, hey, I made an action figure and I went and did a Kickstarter. Okay, well, are you ready for all the things that are going to come behind that? Because now, are you going to be a company, or are you going to just do this as kind of a one shot, and then, hey, I fulfilled my goal, and then I don't have any other plans of doing any more action figures? So those are all those things you have to think about. And then there's these financial obligations that come behind that, because when you're given money, at the end of the day, the government only sees that you made X amount of money. So if you don't plan that out right, you can really get hemmed up, because the government's going to come and they're going to end up taxing it off of those Kickstarter campaigns. So you got to make sure, like, hey, when I do this, that basically a lot of that stuff you can write off as a company, but it has to fall the right way, and you have to be able to line things up and kind of know where you're going to be spending that money, or you're going to have this amount of money left over, if you didn't spend it in the right time, and then you're going to have to deal with that when it comes down to the taxes. So there's a lot to it. There's a lot between learning how to create action figures, trying to run the business side, trying to run the finances, trying to run a team and stuff like that. I started off when I decided to make Invincible toys, it was just me, and I figured everything out on my own. Since then, we've increased the size of the team, and it's awesome. It's great to have all of these guys on the team with all of these different skills and abilities, and have people to now be able to rely on. So if I have to do something like, hey, we're designing the boxes, like, hey, you want to sit down with me and let's go ahead and like knock this out, and then I can give that task over to somebody else and they could focus on that. And not just because they have better skills in that area, but it's able to take something else off of my plate so I can deal with other things. So yeah, there's just a lot of great guys on the team now doing a lot of wonderful things. I mean, you spoke to Ewert, and you guys have talked and stuff. You've had an opportunity to learn about him and what he does, and of course, he's a member of the team, and he's always somebody I rely on. He's in charge of basically all of like, designs and art and stuff like that. So whenever we come up with these concepts, it's like, hey man, check this out. Let's work it over. Let's bulk this out. And that's what he's, doing for the company while we're still working on his, intellectual property and working on that line. And that's something else that will be coming out, later on in 2024. So yeah, it is a process. I have people that come and they are, hey, I need some assistance. I already got an idea. This is where I am in the process. Can you give me some advice, or can you help me move forward? Which is great. I love that. We've helped out Brandon with 9 to 5 Warriors. I don't know if that's something you've seen. That was kind of
the food fighter.
yeah. They're like the food fighters, but they're office supplies, and some are food. And that was really awesome to work on. Did all the paint masters and stuff like that. So the videos you see, a lot of the promotional images and stuff, those were all hand painted prototypes that we worked on together to get that done. So he would have those things to do the videos with, and so that was really cool. And then of course it was helping him along through the process, which we still talk and we still do. And we're constantly working with people on these projects. And at the end of the day, it's some companies would probably charge, to give that advice and to kind of oversee those things. But I just remember how hard it was doing it on my own, having to learn from scratch. And, if possible, I wouldn't want to have anybody have to go through that on their own, especially if I have that knowledge and the capabilities to assist them as they move forward. So one of them is the combat creatures. I don't know if you guys have seen the combat creatures. It's on Kickstarter now, and it's the anthropomorphic kind of animals. Here's actually a print that was sent to me from Bo.
Oh, those I have seen those. I didn't know they were up
Yeah.
on Kickstarter. Yeah, yeah, I'm gonna have
Yes,
to check those
they are
out.
on Kickstarter. If it's something you're interested in, it's kind of like um kind of like Warhammer. And if you've been following them, the Jason with Sparrow toys. So kind of, the animal crossover, and there's a bunch of armor. All the armor's interchangeable. It's got like the weapons kind of plug into the arms and stuff like that. They'll actually slide in there, where you can kind of interchange those pieces. They've got, helmets that you can switch out. So if you want to, trade those out, or if you want him to kind of be like your captain or your sergeant of a squad, and then you want a bunch of squads of, kind of army builders. Those are great too.
I know I think, is that the one that has the shark in it? The shark with
Yeah,
the
yeah. It's
okay,
got
yeah, I have
the
seen that one.
shark. This one is actually based off the wolf. I'm making it into a German Shepherd now. But yeah, it's got the shark, the lion. What else do we have? The shark, the lion, the wolf, and there's another one, the bear, and the bear. But yeah, man, these things they're awesome. I mean, all of that armor there, on the shoulder pads is interchangeable. It's got these little plug-in pieces here that you can plug in if you want to change those out. And it's got a bunch of hands, and this is something that I thought was really cool, where you have these parts of these weapons where you can, pull those apart and then change them out. So if you want just kind of like, like a pistol, you can pull that off, kind of go with like a pistol base. You want to add to it, you want to bulk that out, you can add these parts in and then kind of build them up, and it gets longer. There are, all kinds of parts to it. So this is just one of the rifles, but yeah, it's awesome. A friend of mine, his name's Bo. He's doing the Kickstarter. Great guy. He does all the sculpting and stuff himself. These are based off of the Battle Beasts. They were like, I think they were like maybe 2 inches that came out in the 80s or 90s range, and they were just little characters. Yeah, there you go. So, and they're right there. They're almost at they're fulfilling the campaign. So, if you want them, they're also the best thing to do is to back it through the campaign, because that's going to help out the most. So, for the people who don't know, if you go on the Kickstarter campaign, you go to Kickstarter under Combat Creatures Kickstarter. You can just look that up, and then when you get on there, you can pick what you want, pledge for it, and then that pledge isn't actually, you wouldn't have to pay for that pledge until the end of the Kickstarter campaign. So if it funds, that's when you'll pay for the pledge. So let's say you get one combat creature at $35. When it ends in, I think it has a couple more days on it. When it ends in those
looks
couple
like
of days,
16 days. So you
16
got
days.
2 weeks and 2 days.
Right. So in 2 weeks and 2 days, when that ends, that's when that payment would be processed. And that's only if it funds. So if people want these, and this is how Kickstarter works, if people want these, they have to pledge on it for it to succeed. If it doesn't succeed, then they're not getting made. So this might be a once in a, lifetime kind of opportunity where these are offered, because there's of course no guarantee that if it doesn't fund that Bo will come back and offer these again. But I mean, they're just awesome figures, and you see them here. These are the renders, but I'll tell you what, man, just in hand, they are solid. I mean, the jointing system is amazing. The details are just spectacular. And there's so much fun to play with, and the interchangeable parts and the capabilities to army build them are through the roof. So I mean, this is definitely one I'm behind 110% as a collector. I'm getting all 4 of them. That's kind of what I could afford around Christmas. I would have gotten more if I could, but yeah. So like the shark, all of them are just awesome characters, great designs, and he plans on doing more. So the the original ones, the combat creatures, yeah, there's the breakdown. You can actually see how they're all based on a barbell joint. So those barbells, they're snug fit. Even on these prints, they're snug fit, and you could pop those off and interchange all of that, kind of like the Glyos system where you could pop everything off and interchange them. So it's and the thing is that if you read like the story, the backstory on it, it's got a really cool kind of, I wouldn't call it simple, but it's easy to follow. It's got an easily followable backstory. There's the small ones that are based off the originals. So if you kind of scroll back up a little bit, there you go, you kind of see those, and those were kind of based off of the 2-inch originals, and those can actually be interchanged with the original characters that were made back, I think they were made in the late 80s and 90s. So you can actually interchange all of those parts too. And I'm not sure if they're still doing the early bird, but the early bird actually included a capability to print those off on the early bird special. So they are a little over 6 inches. They definitely fit in with like your Marvel Legends, your GI Joe Classifieds, your Valaverse, all of those guys. They're a little bit, maybe just a little taller, and that's something that Bo and I talked about. And of course, they're giant animals, so they were just a little bit taller than an average human with all the armor and stuff on there. So super awesome line. totally believe in it, and it's really cool what Bo's doing there. And this is just that prime example of a Kickstarter campaign and what you see in the process that goes into it, right? Because of course, Bo had to come up with these concepts, and then he had to sculpt them in a 3D program. And then it, kind of like as you scroll through, you can see where those 3D renders are in there. So where you have like the breakdown of all the parts right there. All right. So this is obviously a 3D render of the character and all the parts and stuff like that. And that's what Bo actually had to design, make it work, make sure all those parts would go together properly, that the figure, form and function worked out, and then had to go through and do this Kickstarter. So all the things that go behind it is where you see, oh, okay, if I fund this, it's $35 for a figure. Well, how much is it going to cost for the factory to make it? Then I have to factor in how much it's going to, cost for me to ship it from China into the US. If the backer or if Kickstarter funds, I have to pay a fee on top of that because, Kickstarter is going to charge for their services. And there's just so many things that go into doing these Kickstarters. So if you see something, and I tell people, if you see something on Kickstarter, don't be afraid of it. If you like it, you want it, go out there and back it. Most of the people that are doing this, they're not out there trying to, take people's money or whatever the case is, because it literally takes so much time and effort to do a Kickstarter campaign and to create these things that, and unless that's that person's number one priority is to try to steal money from people, I couldn't see why anybody that just didn't have a passion for this stuff would ever want to go and try to do this. It's just it's a very long, lengthy process that takes a lot of time and effort. So yeah, if anybody wants it, get out there, pledge for it now. Like I said, you won't pay for it until 16 days later. But if you don't pledge now and it doesn't fund, then you might never have another chance to back it and get these awesome figures.
Yeah, I'm gonna make sure to put my pledge towards this
And
today, because
the thing is,
this guy here is the one that interested me, was the shark.
and the thing is
Sealock.
too that people don't have to buy a figure. There are pledge options. You could put $1 to it. You could put $5 to it, $10. If you see it, you like it, or you just want to support the people that are throwing these campaigns. One of my buddies was doing it. I helped him through the process, and I just couldn't afford it at the time. It was outside of my price range. So I said, "Hey, dude, I'm sorry, I can't afford it right now, but I threw $25 towards the campaign." So it's like, yeah, maybe you can't afford it, or maybe it's just something you're not interested in. But if you're interested in backing somebody and helping more independents make it into the toy market, so we keep getting awesome things like this and the futuristic combat soldiers and Fist, Animal Warriors of the Kingdom, 9 to 5 Warriors and stuff like that, then maybe just throwing $5 towards it just to see these things happen. That's an option too. They don't have to put in that full $35 pledge.
Yeah, these look awesome. I'm definitely for sure getting the shark, and it looks like they have an option for 4-inch ones for only for all you that strictly only collect 1/18 scale. If this type of stuff interests you, it looks like they have that option. They have a couple of different characters it looks like they're going to be unlocking once they start getting through the tiers. And yeah, these look great. I feel like a lot of people that collect the Motu stuff could really
Absolutely.
get
These
some use
definitely
out of
fall in
these.
line with that. Yeah, I mean, Masters of the Universe, like I said, if you're doing Animal Warriors of the Kingdom, a lot of people are collecting those. These are right, in scale and in line with them. Um, the
Savage
GI
Crucible
Joe
too. Savage
Savage
Crucible.
Crucibles coming out. So like see if I can get this in screen there. There's Chuckles, and then you can see where the model stands.
Yeah.
If we can get that, a little. So they're about, foot to foot. So they're a little bit bigger. You can kind of see them there. Just maybe a couple inches taller than that. So you can kind of get that idea of where they scale. But yeah, super cool. And that, like I said, this is what I love doing, man. I love action figures. I love, helping people out and doing that. There's some really awesome people out there that are trying to kind of get into the industry, or they just want to make their figure. Maybe they don't have a huge passion to become a toy company, but they do love making figures, and these Kickstarter options are, is that ability to get your foot in the door and to get your figure out there. There's a gentleman, his name's Matthias Wade, and he does a comic book called Jeddah, and it's Jeddah Tales of the Ashikawa, and it's basically, she's kind of like a ninja character. And he came and he was like, "Hey, dude, I've been doing this comic book, for X amount of years. I'd really love to do a figure on it. Would you guys be interested in creating the figure?" So it was like, yeah, absolutely. So if there are people out there that do want to create a figure, they're looking for that option, they're feel free to reach out to us, at Invincible_toys on Instagram.
Let me see if I can get that on here real quick.
Yeah, and they can reach out to me directly, and if that's something, right, you can actually see there, that was the O-ring line that Zeka Toys did, and it didn't get funded, but that was based off of the Fist characters, so they're actually pretty cool too.
And these are the ones that are getting the Kickstarter.
They
pretty
got a
soon, right?
Kickstarter. Yeah, they got a Kickstarter. The Kickstarter wasn't able to fund, but sometimes those things happen. But those are the 3 3/4 O-ring figures. Those aren't actually the 1/12 scale 6-inch figure line. You can see there
These are
some
the
of
6
them.
right
Yeah.
here.
Yep. Yeah. And that's primarily what we're doing. The 3 3/4 line was, through another company wanted to do that, and we had worked a deal out with them to be able to do those things. So
Yeah, these look really cool, and
they
I
are. They're
remember you
actually.
guys were talking about the story on I can't remember if it was the Toy Domination podcast or if it was
Yeah.
one of the
Yeah.
other ones.
We were on Toy Domination pretty recently, and we were talking about the actual storyline behind it and everything. And it's really cool. And we're working on a comic book, getting that out, so people can kind of get an idea of like the different factions and what they're all about and what the characters are. And just Esteban, he's the gentleman who does that. Also a member of the team, really great guy, great sculptor. And he came up with this whole concept of what Fist was in the world, and it's just a really neat kind of dynamic to it. And then of course it has some of the things that kind of falls into a lot of the sci-fi stories we hear, and then it has some kind of like spins and twists and turns into it that make it a little more interesting. And the character designs are just phenomenal. They're really fun, really reminiscent of like the 90s Joes with the bright colors, the crazy mohawks and stuff like that. So they're really fun, and we'll be, like I said, we'll be doing those early 2024. So probably around March or April, we'll be launching the Fist action figures on Kickstarter.
Yeah, I'm gonna make sure to put that down too, because this gentleman right here is catching my
Mad Dog.
eye. I like his design, his rifle. Yeah, this is up my alley, and
Yeah.
it looks like, if for anyone that is gonna end up watching or listening to this, If you have any of those McFarlane Warhammer figures, I know they did some orc-looking characters. These will look like they will fit in perfectly.
Yeah, the only thing is they're scaled at, normal probably GI Joe classified size, so they would probably be a little smaller, compared to, because of course McFarlane is well into the 7 inches, and then you're talking about um Space Marines, so they're really big and chunky. But if you can kind of look past that, having a bunch of orcs, if you're able to think about it in that kind of like a military aspect and get past what the Warhammer says an orc should be, then yeah, they would fit in, and you could have a field day kind of beating up your orcs with your Space Marines.
Yeah, these look really cool, and he's gonna be colored like this, right? But just
Yeah.
bigger. Okay.
Uh-huh. And I think, I mean, we have another page for it on Instagram. I think it's Fist Action Figures. So it's like F.I.S.T. And I think
Let me
that
see if I
will,
can
yeah, let me,
pull that up real quick.
because we changed it recently. So I want to make sure that's, um, where it's at.
Oh, there it is. Fist Action Figures. There we go.
Yeah.
Go ahead and switch that over real quick. I haven't used this in a while. All right, there we go. So here is an example
Yes.
here of the 6-inch ones.
Yep.
Let's see.
So that was the show that they just did recently over in Colombia. So Esteban is native to Colombia, and it's kind of weird because we never really look at what's going on in these other countries and like what their toy markets look at. Like, right? We always think of like, oh, figures are made in China, and we know that there's a lot of action figures coming out of China. But when you look at what's going on in the other parts of the world, there's not really a lot of companies making these action figures that come directly from or from other countries. So Esteban's goal was to basically create a line that was going to be um, produced in Colombia by a Colombian factory. Obviously he's Colombian, a Colombian creator, and this would kind of be like their GI Joe classified, created in Colombia, and that's kind of like one of those things that he really takes a lot of pride in. And I'm a huge proprietor of. I'm a huge backer of seeing that happen. I'd love to be able to have something like that go and take place in another country, to watch it grow, to watch the lore and stuff like that kind of take off. Of course, obviously we offer it here in the U.S., and it's not like there's any real specification that the line is like Colombian, but it is designed by Esteban, who's from Colombia, and then the factory is actually going to be making those. It's located in Colombia, so really cool thing going on there. That's really a big deal. We're talking to a couple of stores that are in Colombia. There you see Esteban. Um, he's very, very passionate about the line and making action figures.
Yeah, these look excellent. They look very, very 80s, very 90s, and I really like the way that these look.
Yeah, and he's created backstories to them. They all have kind of like file cards. The box art is spectacular. We went over and he shared box art and stuff. So that stuff's going to be really cool. I think it's going to be something that is really going to be an awesome complement to the current toy lines that are out there. I think people are really going to enjoy it.
Yeah, then this is
Yeah,
scale
so you can
wise
actually
what.
see the scale. And I've got some of the prototypes here with me, so I'm a huge, person that I believe that there's a lot of things that go into making a toy, and it's not just like, oh, does it look cool? Oh, does it have 1,000 points of articulation? Like, does it tell a story? Does it have good articulation that actually functions and serves a purpose? What about the character design? Is it a good design, or is it just kind of something that's generic? And those are all things that we really like to focus on at Invincible Toys, is like, does it tell a story behind the character? Does it tell the story outside of you just sticking to what the lore is and what we've created, right? And like with the futuristic combat soldiers, I never really sat down and said, "Oh, hey, this was this guy's name, and this is what he used to do, and this is all his background story before he became a futuristic combat soldier," because I wanted people to use their imaginations, and that's something that I enjoyed doing as a kid. My characters. My Snake Eyes GI Joe. He might be a ninja today. He might be a commando tomorrow. He might be a squad leader today, and he might just be a single operative tomorrow, right? So using my imagination, being able to actually like play with the figures and being able to look at them and create these kind of ideas on our own is what we really like to shoot for. And
Yeah,
that's, I mean, it's definitely something that happened here with Fist.
these look excellent. I'm gonna let me make sure I'm not even, and that's why I would miss out on it, because I'm not even following the thing. Well, now that I'm following it, and whenever the Kickstarter goes up, I will be definitely keeping my eye out on these, and especially Mad Dog, and this Fist Trooper looks excellent too for um anyone that ended up doing the Kickstarter for the Invincible toy stuff, and you ended up picking the stealth colors for the
Mm-hmm.
Ranger. This These guys are gonna look perfect with him.
Yeah, I mean, and that's the cool thing. I mean, there's something there for everybody. If you're into the army building, you can army build them with the standard troopers. If you like the bad guys, we've got orcs. I mean, I just think like the orcs in general was a really awesome spin on, and I don't even want to really say bad guys, but people. I think most people would look at them and say, "Oh, that's what they are. They're the evil, side, and so on and so forth." But just to put them in military gear was a really cool concept that I love about them.
Yeah, these look great. They look excellent, and I am gonna keep my eye out for these in the future, at least next year whenever you guys get those up. I'm gonna be keeping my eye out for those. But in terms of the Invincible toy stuff, it looks like you have a couple of pictures of what
Yeah,
they
this
look
was
like.
basically for scale purposes. I just kind of put them in there with other lines. Uh, People were like, "Oh, they're too tall." I guess it was one of the, I guess the perspective in which the picture was taken with the Spartan and the Black Widow figure. People were like, "Oh, these are huge," and I was like, "They're not." That's a female figure. She's a lot smaller than a male figure, and these guys aren't, much bigger than some of the more muscular or taller figures in other lines. So I definitely wanted to kind
Because
of put the pictures out there where people could see it.
I know when you originally had gotten the first painted
Mhm.
sample, and Ewert showed it on his channel, they were taller than this, and I guess you guys shrunk it down a little bit in production, so they were a little bit smaller. Because I know when he put them side by side with McFarlane, they looked like they were about the same height as a McFarlane figure. So did you guys
Yeah,
end up scaling them down a little bit from the first sample all the way down to the final ones that you guys have now?
they do shrink a little bit in production. If you put them with like a McFarlane figure, they're significantly shorter than a McFarlane figure, but they're definitely about the size of like a Gung Ho, um, Bazooka, some of the taller Marvel Legends figures and stuff like that. So, and that was the goal because they were supposed to be futuristic combat soldiers. So we wanted them to look imposing on a shelf. We didn't want them to just stand next to all the other characters and just kind of be the same scale. We wanted them a little bigger and to look opposing. So yeah, that was the goal. But you could see the figure, I guess, some of those.
There's the cowboy.
So you see, like, yeah, you could see him in there. Captain America, Bazooka. There was a Namor that my kids traded heads off on it for a bullseyes, but you kind of get that idea of where those figures sit if you have any of them.
And then for anyone that is also doing the Fortnite figures, those will scale well too. But these,
yeah, and the cool thing is they're at that size where if you want to have them fight like your NECA aliens or your predators. I mean, there's obviously Predator itself is a pretty big figure, but
I know with the
we get about an hour in, and then things start to get a little wonky.
But yeah, the Planeswalker looks great. For anyone that was doing the, what were they called? The Dora Milaje or the Black Panther figures. I think these would look really good next to him. I know someone was talking about that they were going to put a Chadwick Boseman head on theirs whenever they got theirs in. Of course, we have the figure that has stolen the show.
Yeah. And this is the picture I'm talking about, the one where people were like, "Oh, he's so big," and it's like that's a small figure, like compared to her, and they are a little bigger, but not any bigger than some of the larger male figures in our regular lines that we already collect. So
no, but it makes sense because, like you said, they're futuristic combat soldiers. They are going to be built like soldiers, so they are going to be a little bit taller, muscular, and so it makes sense that they're going to be running a little bit taller than.
And they're just, I mean, obviously it's my line, but they're so much fun to pose, to load out, take the gear off, put the gear on, swap the heads out, like just the posability and the functionality of them is like something I spent a lot of time, trying to make sure that that's right. They can all hold their weapons correctly. They could do two-handed, pistol. They could do obviously like rifle. They can get it into their shoulder. They can look down the sights. You can put them in sniper poses. You can put them in kneeling poses. Like all of those things was something that was a huge focus on making these figures. And when you get them in hand, they feel so solid, with the posability, with the paint. Some of these guys have, just massive amounts of paint on them. People are always like, "Oh, I want more paint." Nobody ever puts paint like into the figures, and that's true. We see like, hey, this character is wearing green camo pants, and it's just green plastic. It's not even painted plastic, So it's like all the paint and everything that went into it. It was just, it's a lot. So for $35, man. I'm really happy with how they turned out, especially like getting soft goods in there. I mean, some, you're paying 15, 20, $30 sometimes if you just want a soft goods cape,
Yep.
depending on what you're trying to pick up. So it's got the soft goods cape, it's wired 360 degrees. So that's all the way through it. It's got a clasp in the front. It's reversible. So if you don't like it in red and you want to switch it to black, you can do that. There's just a lot of value to it. And that's definitely something that we're trying to continue, as we move forward and we're making action figures.
This was the one that I was talking about, that if you end up liking those fist troopers and you picked up this guy from the Kickstarter, those will work perfectly.
Yeah, I don't have any of those on hand right now because we sent them off for Legion's Con, so I haven't got them back yet. But I'd actually show some of those as far as scale wise with the combat creatures. But yeah, and you can see there if you saw that one with the Valaverse figure, you can see. I mean, that's pretty much normal scale as far as what you think of a male figure is. That's not a larger figure, but you can see they're a little bit taller, but not overly tall, or big. So,
but I'm glad that you guys went into the engineering and made sure that, when you have them holding rifles for the Rangers and the Cowboy and the particular characters in the line that have guns that are coming with those futuristic guns, that they're going to be able to look down the sights, and if you want them to hold out their pistols, they'll be able to hold the pistols. Because I know there's a lot of characters in the classified series. I know it was with the earlier waves, and even with some of them now, where you can't get them to look down the sights, and when you try to force it, it'll either the gun will pop out of their hand or it'll just look really wonky. And especially for the price that Hasbro's starting to charge now, it's that shouldn't be. So I'm glad that you guys are doing that and took the time to make sure that that's
that's actually Snow Job's problem, and it was frustrating because I was really looking forward to this figure, and there's like certain parts of it that are absolutely amazing. The sculpt is absolutely amazing. I actually do like where they put the paint, where they actually put paint. They made some good decisions there. All the accessories that came with it, for the price point was great. And I mean, it's like one of those figures that came with an actual, realistic rifle that had a lot of detail. It looked really nice, but he can't hold it. He can't hold it in two hands outside of kind of just a relaxed position. And if you want him actually aiming that, it's just not going to happen. And you're definitely not going to get him looking down, kind of the scope here. And that was really frustrating because when I got it, I had, I was looking forward to it so much. And then to get it in hand and, kind of have to realize that the weapon they gave him wasn't even going to work with the figure. It's very frustrating. So, one of those options is you're pretty much going to either have to have him kind of in that neutral holding pose, or you're going to have to go with a smaller weapon that he's going to be able to, to get in his hands and actually hold it correctly. So, and that's just frustrating. It's frustrating to get that. There are a lot of ways to avoid it. And it's nice when the companies take the time to do that, because it shows that they care and put a little bit of thought. And not saying that somebody didn't think this out, because I'm sure somebody did, but it was probably one of those things that after it got out of production, somebody looked at it and said, "Oh man, he can't hold his rifle." So,
yep. I know that was one of the issues I had with the steel core. One of the female, I couldn't get her to hold her gun rate, so I used I had the extra Eclipse because I went and I bought, well, when I had pre-ordered the Wave off of Big Bad Toy Store because I didn't get to do the Kickstarter. I had her extra body because I went and I did this with mine, and this one has the new vest on. And once I heated up all the parts that I needed to, and there were certain parts that I had to super glue down and made sure that those. But yeah, there were certain parts I had to glue down, and then there were some I had to heat up and then do the hot water, cold water to make sure that they fit right. But once I did all that and I put all those parts on her, she has no issues. I can get her to hold the sniper rifle gun that she comes with, the big shotgun looking, or the big heavy assault rifle with the grenade launcher. I can get her to hold. She can two hand the pistol that she comes with, and it's weird that you have to go through all those weird hoops to try to figure that stuff out. But once you've been collecting for such a long time, you're kind of like, you see something and then you're like, something's not right here, but I know I can fix it. You shouldn't have to fix it, but you're like, I know that I can save this figure.
And some
I'm
of
glad
that,
I was able to.
some of that's unavoidable because you're thinking like, our factory does QC checks, right? So as they're doing the figures, they're checking joints to make sure they fit and everything. The problem is once it's placed in that box and now it's stuck on a container, you're dealing with all of these variable temperatures, right? And now you're in a metal container, so it's like a microwave in here. So it's getting really hot. It might get really cold at night, and everything's kind of expanding, paint's kind of bonding and doing its own thing. So where you might get that figure and you're like, oh dude, the joints are stuck, or oh the paint has kind of like stuck the joint together, or whatever the case is. People are automatically like to jump to the
Yeah, because I know once it gets into the colder, well, now it's starting to get cold, so now I'm gonna have to go through and check all my figures because I know, like, you can't see it on the picture, but right to my right, I have all my NECA Predators on my. It's like a second to last shelf, and then on my very top shelf, I have all my NECA horror figures there, and then way side am I on? This side. I have all my NECA Universal Monsters, so I'm gonna have to make sure and check the joints because yeah, that would absolutely kill me if one happened to have fallen and like a leg breaks or a hand breaks, because some of those I had to get off of Big Bad Toy Store because I never saw the figures in the store. And then some of them are like con exclusives. So it's like, oh, the time has passed for me to be able to, and you don't want those to
and
break.
a lot of the NECA figures, before they would really jump up in price, and some of that was because of availability, or it was going through a phase where joints were getting stuck, things were kind of breaking, and it was like, oh man, here I have this figure that I really like, and I have to be very careful with it because it's fragile, and then it gets broken. Then all of a sudden you're like, man, there's not a lot of these figures left. So, you start seeing that price go up. But,
And
luckily NECA's fixed a lot of those issues.
And some of those Predators that had those issues, they still haven't re-released and updated yet. And I'm just sitting here like, oh, I wish you would go back and do some of those, because the Ghost Predator was one. I can't remember what the other one was. It was like the clan leader or something like that, and he was like a red and black Predator, and he had the mask, and then he had like the tendrils, these like robotic tendrils that would come out, and he had a staff, and they never re-released that one. And I think Ewert had it, and I think he said it had some sort of issue where something broke on it, and he couldn't even
Mm,
replace it because they just they stopped um,
yeah.
producing them.
Yeah, so I mean, in all the companies, sometimes they come across this, the classified. They did Dusty and Zorana, and the arms were popping off. Valaverse had the issue where it had like the bubble in the foot peg, and the foot peg was breaking, and stuff like that. So sometimes those things they do happen. And people, I think a lot of it does have to do with how the company reacts to it. Is it like a positive reaction where, Valver said, "Hey, look, we realize it's an issue. We apologize and we're fixing it." I don't know what Hasbro did. I think sometimes they'll send you out replacement figures or a figure. It's not always the one you bought, but so at least there's some sort of positive interaction there. If there's something that's wrong with it, but thing it's like we collect action figures, and these are collectibles primarily for adults. The market isn't really with young, kids anymore. There are certain things that are for kids, but those are for real young kids. In that age range where you're talking about maybe 6, to 13, they're playing video games. They're not out there going, "Oh, I can't wait till I get a futuristic combat soldiers figure." My
Right.
kids are, but they were raised that way, but most kids aren't, and that's probably why lines like Fortnite don't do well, is because GI Joe classified collectors are like, "Yeah, let me scoop that up," or people who collect things that are Marvel Legends. But when it comes down to the Fortnite collectors, they're not out there looking for that, because instead of going out and buying an action figure, they're going to go pay money for a skin that they want. And if the only way they're probably going to go out there and buy that action figure is if it is that character that they play in the game, right? You're like, "Oh, hey, I'm Mancake's in the game, so I'm going to go get Mancake's action figure just because it draws my attention and that's the character I play." But when you're talking about, most people probably use, maybe 1 to 4 different skins, because your character just kind of rolls over in your weapons and stuff. It's like, what's the incentive to go buy more of that line, right? We buy GI Joe classified because we love Duke, and we love Snake Eyes and Roadblock and Scarlet and Tripwire, right? Because we like those characters, they're interesting, and we want to add those characters to our collection, where that just wasn't the case with Fortnite. And I think it got to the point where that what they were hoping as far as that turnover for Fortnite just might not have been there, and that's why they discontinued that line. So, because it
Yeah,
was an awesome line, and it still is. And when you had stuff like the boats and the characters with gliders, and you look at everything, and everything was really well done. The QC was you know was well managed. The decals, the paint, and stuff like that. It was a good line. I mean, it was quality, but I just don't think it had the backing that they were expecting nowadays. And majority of people that are collecting are middle-aged adult men.
right.
So yeah,
Yeah, it sucks that that line kind of went with the other lines.
mm-hmm.
Um, but I'm glad that like people that missed out on it, like I said, they're at Ollie's. They are plentiful at Ollie's. So that was one of the main reasons why I sat down and I did the overview the best that I could, because I didn't have a desk, and now I have a desk, and I'm able to be a little bit more professional with um, getting back to making videos like that on my channel. But I wanted to get the word out because yeah, these figures they're excellent.
I agree.
And when you have these really cool, unique characters like with Invincible toys, you can kind of blend those in,
Yeah,
with
absolutely.
your imagination. Like, um, I don't know if it's in this. It might not be in this one. It might be in the next one. Let's see. No, it's not that one. There you go. So you could have, the cowboy, he's wandering, he thinks he's the lone gunslinger in your story, and then bam, another
Yep.
gunslinger comes up, and now he's got a partner in crime,
Or he's got
or
breakfast. One of the two.
or he's got breakfast,
You can eat some pancake heads. I
right?
don't know. Yeah.
But that's the type of stuff that I had, growing up, because when I was growing up, we still had KB Toys, we still had Kmart, and so every once in a while, because I had awesome grandparents, I loved my grandparents. They would take me to KB Toys, and they would let me pick something out. So
nice.
I would pick out, like a small figure, if it was a Ninja Turtle, or if it was, like a Hot Wheel car or something like that. And, I would take it back to their house, and I would have a whole, little story, and then, as time progressed, I got into, I know I had some GI Joes. They were still on the O-ring, but it was around I think it was Valor versus Venom. And then 25th anniversary had come out. But I had found them at Big Lots, and I would save up my, either I would save up my little bit of allowance, or, if we had a garage sale during the summer, I would sell some toys that, that just didn't interest me anymore. And I would save that up. And then, those few trips we would take to Big Lots, I would go there, and they would have the 2-packs with the comic books, and they were like $10. So I would get, I got a couple of those, and I was like, oh, look, I have more Joes. And that's when I got Tunnel Rat. And that was my first Tunnel Rat, and he's always been my favorite since. I had Firefly, I had Storm Shadow, I had Destro. Then Rise of Cobra came out, and then those were showing up at Marshalls and those discount stores. And then I had gotten the Baroness, and then Pursuit of Cobra came out, and there was like a point in time where we were jumping back and forth, moving between here and Jersey. And in Jersey City, there used to be a Toys R Us there. You would take, either you would drive, you would take the interstate, and you would be right there, and it was in a little strip mall, or you would take the train or the bus. And we went there, and they still had Rise of Cobra stuff, and I had $20, and I think it was 20 or $25. And I went and I bought the Steel Crusher APV, and that was the one.
Oh, cool.
I remember I had seen the movie, and I remember that vehicle, and I was like, if they have that car for the actual GI Joes, this would be awesome, because I can have Cobra running people over, because it's a Hummer and it has missiles out the side, pop out. It's got this big cannon at the top, and then you can switch it into this like armored car, and it has a plow at the front. And they had it, and that was $25. And then the Joes, I think, were on sale, and I think I had gotten, I can't even remember which one it was. I think it might have been Beachhead. So I had that Pursuit of Cobra Beachhead. And then for my birthday that year, one of my friends had gotten me the Jungle Viper, and he had the ghillie suit, he had the really cool long night vision goggles with like the little infrareds on them, and then he had this huge gigantic sniper rifle, and
and those big wings and everything.
Yep. And you could have the ghillie suit close in on him depending on how you had him. and he was so much fun. I'm hoping that classified series gets to the point where we get him, because if we get him in the classified series, that is going to unlock so many childhood memories with him. Um, and that is what I had for Joe's. And so, you would take whatever Joe's you had or whatever figures you had, and you would build a story around it. So if you had, some Star Wars figures, you had GI Joe figures, or if you went to the dollar store and you had dollar store figures, now they have what is that line that's at the dollar store where they had like a robotic dog and they had
Oh man,
aliens.
yeah,
Um,
I went and got all of those for my kids, and they
they're
loved all of them.
significantly better than what I had as an option as a kid. But now
Right.
you can, you have that option. So if you have, those, I know at a time, the Jazzwares Fortnite stuff, the 4-inch ones, you could find those. You could find them at the discount stores still. But you could put a little story together with those, and that's how a lot of us grew up. We couldn't go to the toy store all the time. We couldn't get new toys unless it was for your birthday or for Christmas or something like that. So you would take what you had and you would build a story around it, and that's why I love um, lines like the Hasbro Fortnite line, like what Valaverse is doing,
Mhm.
some of the classified, and what you guys are doing with Invincible Toys, because it's like, you know, once everyone gets them in hand, for a lot of us that grew up doing that, it's going to be like picking up where we left off, as if time didn't pass and we got older and had to deal with adult responsibilities like bills and
Yeah, right.
all that fun stuff. But like that's what these remind me of, is like getting to sit back down and continue those stories or start new stories,
Yeah,
and
I mean,
that's
I think
awesome.
that's the biggest thing for me is, and I've got 4 boys, and they kind of go from 6 to 16. Um, but that's what they love. They're sitting, you see them running in and out because they're in here playing with the action figures and making stuff and things like that. And that's what I want for them too. I mean, I remember that nostalgia feeling of having those action figures and how fun it was and how cool it was to use your imagination and have certain things that you really, liked that stuck with you over the years. And kind of hope to create that same thing for them in Invincible Toys. And they're just waiting to get their hands on the figures once we get them out here. But hopefully one day they'll see the value in it, and Invincible Toys will still be around, where if this is something that they love and they like to do, I could eventually turn this over to them and they could create, awesome action figures too, and kind of keep it moving along. And hopefully by then, the action figures are still in existence and not killed off by video games, but
Yeah,
that's the
because
hopes.
I remember. See, and when I say I remember, it's like you sound old when you say that. But I remember when, I was a kid and I would be outside and I was having, Nerf gun fights, or riding our bikes outside, or we were playing wiffle ball outside
Hmm.
and stuff like that. And you don't see that happen anymore. And it's just like, what
Yeah.
happened? It's crazy. And you're like, wow. And you tell people this stuff and you're like, you feel old, because it's like we were kids doing kid stuff, and sometimes we'd get in trouble for doing stuff. Like I know there was one time we thought it was a great idea to have like an airsoft war, and we had all the kids on the block that I grew up on. We all got airsoft guns, and we were having airsoft wars, and even though they were the plastic pellets, they still hurt because they shoot at
Oh yeah.
a rapid rate, and but you wore body parts were sore. No one got hit in the eye or anything like that. So we made sure
I
that didn't happen. But you did stupid stuff like that. But you're
I
like,
mean, when and it's it's probably around a similar time frame, but I used to play paintball when paintball was big before airsoft really took off. And that was the thing, man. You would go out there and you would come home and you were covered in welts, but it wasn't like one of those things that you even thought about. You were like, hey, I'm going to go out there and I don't care if I get shot. It's all, part of the fun of the game. And yeah, I would come in and I would just wear like an Under Armour shirt, so it was just like a fitted shirt and um, some tactical pants and whatever. And I would just go to town. And yeah, I would come in and I would just be covered in welts and whatever else, and it was just like, hey, whatever, like that was just part of the game.
yep,
But now everybody's like so worried about it, and you kind of see where something that's been proven that generationally, as the generations go by and things change, that the generations are starting to get softer. So the things that we used to do where we were out playing around as kids, riding our bikes and popping wheelies and making ramps and shooting each other with airsoft guns, as time goes on, our kids aren't going to be doing those things, that are kind of probably a little haphazard. But
right. But you know, it was fun. Um,
yeah, I agree.
so one more thing, because I know we're gonna have to wrap it up. With Invincible Toys, I know that you have been getting asked this a lot when it comes to the line. Are you guys going to be doing female figures in the future, vehicles, accessory packs, all that type of stuff in the future?
Yeah, I mean the goal is to take it as far as we can, right? That's the big thing. That's what you want to do as a company. Hey, as long as people want it and they see that value in it, we're gonna keep trying to put it out there. We want to obviously get into wave 2 and wave 3. We want to do female characters. My idea was that we would have one female character for every male character. So let's say we had Spartan. Obviously, we have male Spartan. I would want to do a female Spartan character. We have Samurai, a female Samurai, and then that would kind of continue along in that process. But when it comes down to doing that, it's all about how well people take the line in. Do they enjoy it? Are sales good and things are moving, and we're able to justify doing that. If you get out there and people are just kind of scooping up the figures at random, and there's no justification in going in and creating a whole set of females, then obviously that's not something we would be able to do. As far as like weapons, we are doing the head packs. We're going to be I talked to the factory, we're coming out with like 2 head packs where it has 2 independent or different heads in there. So if you want to go an army build, you can switch out the heads and stuff like that. We're looking at doing the weapons packs, and we wanted to do the Oni mask for the samurai, and then we wanted to do the short fin for the Spartan, so you could build out your squads or however people wanted to do that. Because I would love to be able to have at least, like maybe 4 more, Spartans with the short fins, and then kind of have my main Spartan with the long fin. They're kind of leading that with the shields and the swords and all of that good stuff. So yeah, I mean it's all in the works. That's something we want to do. But it just, like I said, it all just depends on how well people pick it up, and uh, just kind of receive the line in general. But yeah, we'll keep going as long as we can, with all of that stuff, including like fist. We have other lines that we're working on too. As far as like vehicles, we definitely want to do vehicles and play sets. We're kind of working on something now that'll kind of transcend all of those things. We have different lines that are in the works. We got Fist. We have another one that's going to be following close behind that we've kind of started to talk about. And we have the futuristic combat soldier. So all three of those lines, we were looking at doing play sets, like some larger play sets, some smaller play sets, just some movable kind of like maybe some shot up brick walls that you could kind of piece together, or some barricades or some fences or something like that, just so you can kind of make dios but still get some play features out of them, and then making larger play sets for the characters to go in. And we've been looking into doing a vehicle that could go between all three lines and you could fit all of the lines into. So where you might have one vehicle with interchangeable parts, you could fit any group of characters in there, and then the only thing that might change is maybe like the paint scheme. So where maybe you have Fist and it has all kinds of like a different, maybe it's like orange with like a bunch of spray paint all over it or something, where you might get one for the futuristic combat soldiers and it's maybe green or black, and it's more sparse and militaristic, where the one for the Fist line might have like a big bulldozer on the front of it or something cool, where you'll be able to take those vehicles and move it across all of those lines.
Yeah, that sounds awesome. I'm glad that you guys are wanting to do counterparts for everybody, because I know something that you don't really see often is like the Western figures. And when you guys showed the cowboy, I was like, oh, I'm 100% down for this line, because we don't get cowboys very often. Like the last cowboy Western character that we got in 6-inch is, again, keep showing him. I love him. Is the man cake. And with the Invincible toys, you guys showed the cowboy. So if we got a cowgirl, that would actually be really cool. I wouldn't mind that. A female Spartan would be pretty cool. Like a female samurai would be cool.
And the goal is to work them all into the storyline, so they're not just kind of figures that are out there. Like kind of what I wanted to do with the samurai was that the samurai female character would be in his volume as far as a comic. So we would have volume 1 starting with Spartan, and then it would go all the way up with all the characters, kind of leading up to kind of like a final comic explaining. So you kind of get the background of all of those characters, what they've been doing, so on and so forth. And then in Samurais, you would actually meet the female who would eventually become the female samurai version of him. So yeah, so I mean that's kind of the thing. We still want to give them stories. We don't just want to be like, oh yeah, hey, we made them to make them. It would be like, hey, we made them, and they, they're part of the world like everybody else is.
Right. That's awesome. Is there a way to get the comic book if you didn't do the Kickstarter?
Yeah, we still have it. If you go to the Invincible_toys, there's a link up in the bio, and you can click on that. And I think we're still selling the comic book. There's access to it. If people want it, or if it's not up on there now, then we'll definitely have it available. We're doing the physical comic. There's an actual hard copy, and then there's the digital version. So one of the things we're doing, because the line has taken longer, is that we're going to, everybody who got a comic, whether it was digital or hard copy, is going to get the digital version first. and then we're going to go ahead and we're going to send out the hard copies, and we'll be sending out we want to send out a hard copy to everybody that got the digital version too. So they would actually end up getting both of those comics kind of as a thank you to, you know, the line and kind of the length of time that it's taken to get them out there. But
because I wanted to talk about this too, because I don't think a lot of people knew, and I was trying to figure it out through the Kickstarter, and I couldn't find it. And then you sent it to me, and then Ewart sent it to me. So I will make sure to put it in the description when this
all right.
gets put up. For anybody that missed out on the Kickstarter, you still are able to get them. So if, because I know I was gonna get the Spartan from Big Bad Toy Store, but if you want them for the regular price, you can get them through this link here, the Invincible
Yeah.
Toys one. So they're all here. They're all available still. There's the artist proof versions, the head packs, and then the comics. And so, you know, you have
Yeah, and
those
if they
options.
go, like I said, if they go to on Instagram and look up Invincible_toys, right in the profile, uh, you know, like the main page on there, up in the description, you can hit that link, and then there's a link tree, and you just click on that, and it actually brings them to all the futuristic combat soldiers, anything, you know, as far as Fist and stuff like that. So they can go save that link, and then they can actually go and see all the lines and what we're working on. When we come out with the third line we're working on, it'll go under there. So all of that information. We do have invincibletoys.com that we're working on now. And then what we're going to be doing is all of those figures are going to go to invincibletoys.com. Like I said, you know, we're probably going to do Fist on a Kickstarter, but if we're getting enough traffic at invincibletoys.com, we might just put, you know, Fist on invincibletoys.com and sell it that way, because then we don't have to worry about all the logistics that come behind, you know, doing the Kickstarter. So that's an option too. But yeah, right now there's that link there that'll take them to all of those things if they want to follow it.
Yeah, because I thought, because I was only able to do 2 of the Kickstarter ones, and that was during the early bird special. So
Nice.
there's not,
Yeah, that's the best time.
so for anyone that wasn't able to do the Kickstarter, there's only like a couple of dollars difference between what is on the page now versus the Kickstarter. Um, but it's all the same. It's still the same figures.
Yeah, so the
And
early bird, if they got in within that first week, it dropped it down to like $32 instead of 35. After that, it was $35. Now the site still has them for $35. We're not changing that. We do, you know, to people who are going to be carrying the line, like retailers, they pick their price on what they want to sell that for once they bring it in, because you know it cost them, you know, certain amounts to get it shipped to them and so on and so forth. So they have to make their money back, and we don't dictate what they sell it for. But right now, you know, we've got it here for $35. When we open up invincibletoys.com, it's still going to be $35, you know. So yeah, I mean, it's not the 32, but that was kind of that early bird incentive, but it's still 35. So
yeah, I'm gonna make sure to put a link in there. And then I'll make sure to put a link for the combat creatures to try to help out. But one more thing, villains. Will we see any bad guys, any doers of evil in the
yeah.
Invincible Toys line in the future?
So it's kind of we kind of take like a different approach to villains. So what happens in the world of the futuristic combat soldiers and what they're facing is they're kind of facing like a bunch of different things that kind of happen at once, which really, makes the need for these guys to be futuristic combat soldiers, have the cool gear and equipment and stuff like that. So in the uh, futuristic combat soldiers world, you have like artificial intelligence that were just kind of basic normal day-to-day helpers in society and stuff like that, but they're run by a satellite that basically kind of controls and regulates them. That ends up getting hit by a spaceship that's carrying these things that are called crawlers, and they're like aliens, almost like face huggers in a sense, but they basically kind of break out and start taking people over, and once they attach to them they become like a zombie. So now you have the AI, their satellites down, they're going nuts. You have these zombies that are, attached to these little alien face huggers. So now you're dealing with these aliens, you're dealing with zombies, and you're dealing with robots. And that's where the futuristic combat soldiers come in, and that's why they need the gear, they need the equipment, they need the futuristic weapons and stuff like that, because in the storyline, that's what they're dealing with, and that's what they're trying to um, basically reverse the process of what's going on in the world. So normal society isn't able to really stand up against what they're dealing with. So now you have kind of population is dwindling, and if something isn't done soon, then you're looking at extinction, right?
Right.
And that'll eventually progress. The story continues and progresses, and you see why it's important for the futuristic combat soldiers to do what they're doing. You get a little look at kind of their personalities and stuff like that as that kind of goes through, and the comic books will touch on all of it, and eventually that will kind of progress to an apex point, and then you you get to see where the world of the futuristic combat soldiers continues to go, which is where stuff like having the female characters in there kind of comes into place. So yeah, I mean, we have a lot of plans for it, and all of it's already thought out. But as far as the bad guys go, right now you're talking about rogue artificial intelligence, zombie, people that are called converts. Once they're, the human gets attached to the crawler, now you have a convert, and then you have the crawler itself, which is kind of like a spidery face hugger thing. And that's kind of what they're facing in this society. And then through the story, you get to put all of it together. So yeah, I'd love to do them. Once again, just like the females, if it takes off and people want to see it, and everything's good, then we'll definitely try to get those things out there. I think people would love. People love zombies. People love robots, and people love aliens. So all of those things would be awesome to be able to make it and get out there to the market.
Yeah, that sounds like something that I am 100% interested in, because there's an interesting story to be told with all of that. And now you make me want to go and pre-order the comic with the with the Smartens. You sold me on the comic.
There, yeah, the Spartans Volume 1, and like I said, it shows everything that leads up to it. And some people might be like, "Oh, that's just corny. It sounds stupid or whatever," but it's very graphic. The comic is very graphic. It's a very teen and adult oriented. It's not goofy or anything like that. When you see these characters and what's going on and what they're dealing with, uh, you definitely kind of like feel that sense of dread that somebody in the regular world, if you were a human being, you would not, want to be here during that time, and what these guys have to go through to accomplish what they're trying to accomplish. So that's something that I really wanted was that when you read it, you were able to um, basically connect with the character in the story and what they were going through. So there was that kind of sense of dread and doom that sat with people, and to me, that's like the thing that makes a hero, right? It's not a hero isn't just that person that does the normal day to day, right? It's when a person is able to transcend and go beyond what a normal person would do, and maybe accomplish something that a normal person couldn't do, or go beyond themselves to do something outside of like the norm. And you kind of see that through the comics, and having that kind of introduction to the world of future. We call it Future Descending, and that's the name of the comic book. But Future Descending is, the storyline, and then you have like Spartan and Historian Volume One. So yeah, but if you guys can get it, I definitely recommend the comic book. I'm going through it. I'm actually doing this. One of the things I'm doing now is we had the comic book ready. It was ready to go, but as I kind of read over it, I wanted to bulk it out a little bit more to make sure that it was 100%. And I just didn't feel like it was exact. It was good, but I just didn't feel like it was exactly where it needed to be. So I'm actually in the process of working it out to make sure that, it's 110% before we cut that loose. But that's something we're going to do. Everybody who ordered is going to get the digital version. And then we're probably going to go through and follow it up. Um, and probably look at, something to get those hard copies out there too. But I don't know. We got to think about it and make sure it makes sense to do those things. But yeah, we're definitely going to get that out there, and it's pretty good. It's a good read.
Absolutely, yeah. I'm gonna put that tab right there, and then make sure that I get that in. But yeah, we sat down for almost 2 hours. I thank you, sir, for getting the chance to sit down with me, and talking some toys, talking Invincible toys, letting people
Absolutely.
know about Kickstarters that are out,
Mhm.
um, that need just a little bit more support, to get going. And yeah, this one significantly better than the first one. So applause to that. I'll make sure to edit some applause into there later. But yeah, thank you so much, sir. I appreciate it. You have yourself a good Thanksgiving. Um, and yeah, I can't wait to see these figures in hand.
Yeah, absolutely. Anytime you want to talk, you know where we're at. If anybody has questions, feel free to reach out. I'm always, open to answer questions. If anybody needs assistance on projects, just have kind of general questions about the line, general questions about creating action figures, have ideas that they just might need some assistance on. You know, always there. The easiest way to get a hold of us is Invincible_toys, and just hit us up, message us, and we'll get back to them and make sure everything's squared away there. But yeah, man, I appreciate you having us on. Enjoy talking with you. And when the figures come out and stuff, we can jump on and do it again if you want to.
Yes, sir. Absolutely. Yeah. Once we get them in hand next year, it's gonna be like I told Ewer, it's gonna be a fun year because it's Invincible Toys, it's Operation Monster Force,
Yeah.
it's a there's just a lot. There's a lot that was shown at PowerCon that is just it's gonna be all at once. And yeah, we're just gonna all enjoy it because I know he wants to sit down and do um, he wants to do one big off our brains. I think
Mm.
um, I don't know when yet, but I know that he asked me if I wanted to do it. So um, yeah, we'll try to plan something out. But
Yeah, that would be awesome. I think that's a great opportunity just kind of hear where people sit and what's kind of going on with the toy community and how people feel and everything. So those are always really nice opportunities just to sit down and talk and kind of geek out about toys and action figures, get to know people and everything. So yeah, I look forward to it.
But yeah, I'm gonna end it here. Invincible Toys again. If you have any questions, concerns, or you have a project that you want to get backed, talk to this gentleman right here. He is very knowledgeable about all of that stuff. And yeah, that's gonna do it here.